Oh. That might be the greatest song ever recorded. You wanna know why, Justin McKee?
Why?
That means another great episode of the Toter Tales. Brought to us in our ERS Gunite. Tyler Boston, my man. Down there pouring concrete in the Texas heat. 972-935-5769. Check him out. He can do it all. He built a swimming pool that looks like an entire water park.
Is that at your house?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you built
My
one.
wife asked me that. If that was possible, I told her, well, I rodeo for a living. It'll either be 5 years or 5 steers, Justin McKee. Our guest, thank you. Welcome to the Toter. You've actually never been in here before. We've done quite the upgrade.
No, but I'm a fan. I follow it on this show, so I feel like I've been in here before.
Well, you know, you've had a very successful ministry. You've set the arena record at Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the steer roping. You're the mecca of the Cowboy Channel. You are the guy. But I want to say congratulations. You have finally made it.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Toter Tales podcast.
I know.
Thanks for taking your time. So let's just give a little landscape. We're actually in Ellensburg, Washington.
Yes, we are.
And this is kind of your, I'm not going to say your week off because you're working all week, but it is kind of your week to rope a little bit. We get to see some great friends here, Scott and Joe Rep. Everybody gets to hang out. What do you got going on?
Well, this has been one of the greatest weeks of my life, and it always is because it's Ellensburg. And the reason that it's great, everybody knows it's a great rodeo and it's a great rodeo town. Atmosphere, fun time of the year because we're into the playoff season for the rodeo business because the end of the season is September 30th. But the main reason that you and I and a lot of the top team ropers in the country, I didn't mean to sound like I'm one of the top team ropers.
We watched you the other day in the practice pen.
You should have seen me today, but we'll talk about that later. But because we got to paint the picture here. We stay at the West Star Ranch, and that's where we're located right now. Scott and Joe Rep. I've been staying here since the first year. So I announced here, Scott Rep was on the board, and he owns this fabulous ranch out on the west edge of town where we're located right now. And the next year, this is a great story, Scott sent me a handwritten letter reintroducing himself to me. He said, hey, we met a couple times. I'm on the rodeo board last year. He said, I know you like to rope. He said, we have an arena at our ranch out west of town. Would love to have you come stay. And he said, not only do we have an arena, we have 60 head of steers. And I'll never forget, in parentheses, it said, now that I have your attention with the steers. I really want you to come out and stay. So I came out and stayed, and the only other people that were staying besides my wife, Jeannie, my daughter, Cassidy, which Jeannie said to tell you hello. She's up at the house with Scott and Joe Rep right now. The only other people was Steve Purcella, who was roping with
Britt Buckus
at that time, and Speed Williams. They all got the invitation. All of us got the invitation to come out here, and so I got to hang out with those guys in rope, along with the owner of this ranch, Scott Rep.
So now you go to the practice pen. It's Steve Purcella, it's Speed Williams. Obviously, Britt will be healing one of the. Like, who do you walk in the box with? Is it Speedy, your practice partner?
I was literally healing for Speed Williams. Yes.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
What an amazing deal. You know, it's neat, and that's one thing we talk about. What I'm gonna miss about rodeo when we're all said and done is the people you meet that make the road. I mean, we're 2 time zones from home, and they make it feel like we're home. You know, whatever you need, it's just they welcome you in, and we can't thank them enough.
Scott and Joe Rep are the most hospitable, most kind, most perfect example of servitude and love. And they open their ranch, and there has been up to 100 trailers in their pasture, all with turnouts and stalls and electric fences. And then he had a guy bring up alfalfa hay up there. And of course, I get to stay at the house. I've been staying at the house for 22 years.
You've been in the casita.
Yeah, the casita. Well, sometimes the casita, sometimes the main house. Right?
That's when you said, hey, I'm looking down there for your rig, Coleman. I said, well, I'm as far away from the main house. I think that's where they keep the Okies. Is, down
as
here.
Far away, right? So they don't steal anything.
I'm in Okieville down here. I tell you what, though, I expanded my own pens today. He lets us build these beautiful, he's got great grass when he gets here.
It's all irrigated.
Oh, and that's
lush.
Something people don't understand from back home. Like, it's very green out here right now. And
as Clem would say, it's a green and lush and stirrup high, and the water is crystal clear and deep.
That's exactly right. Man, that is. You know, the first time I met you, you may not remember this. I was hoping that I could bring this story up and you wouldn't remember.
Okay.
I'm 14 years old. Okay. Now my dad takes me to a rope in Oswego, Kansas.
Rick McKenzie's. I
Yes,
remember.
sir.
I remember. I do remember that.
I'll be 38 this week.
Yeah.
And that would have been 24 years ago. But what
Yes.
I've always remembered about our first encounter was I did not understand his name. I thought it was Justin McKee.
Oh my God. Well, hey, that's a common mistake.
And my dad is you go introduce yourself to this person. I just introduced this guy. You go introduce yourself. That's Justin. And I thought he said McKee. So I give it the Mr. McKee about 6 times before you finally corrected me. But the way you did it, I think that's what makes you such a great, host, or whenever you have people on, your Cowboy Channel show or anywhere that you're doing anything in the arena with a microphone in your hand. It's so great how you corrected me so respectfully that you almost made it seem like that you should have been offended that I did. You know what I mean? You didn't make it I'd made a mistake.
You did anything wrong.
Yeah,
right.
you did it so great. Never forgot
wow,
that.
Thank you. You were right.
And I'm pretty sure I missed, but it was a better story before that.
We'll go with that. I know you were riding Booger.
Absolutely. I was.
And that's what I remember, actually, your horse that I was such a fan of for so long.
That was awesome. So we start out, you were a steer roper, rancher, Lenapaw.
Yeah.
That's how I knew you. Rancher, Lenapaw. Yeah. And then, you go to the PBR, and you were the guy at the PBR. And what I remember so much is PBR was the first thing to make it to mainstream type media. Kids at school would catch a PBR on a Sunday when football season wasn't around. Mm-hmm. So then everybody would want to associate, so you ride bulls. I'm like, no, not even close. I'm way too scared of my mom. And then now from there to where we've leapfrogged to, think about the street cred I could have got if the Cowboy Channel would have had team roping back then, How much exposure has it, and how much about bringing team roping or just rodeo in general into the foresight, into everybody's living room?
I'm going to jump in the weeds here right off the bat, and I hate to start off negative, but
okay.
I've got to, because during the days I was with the PBR, I was always hoping rodeo would catch up to what the PBR was doing media-wise, television-wise, because I'm a timed event guy. I'm a ranch guy. I did the PBR for 17 years. I announced the in-house for 7, then they bought the television rights, and then I went to TV as a host with Tuff Edeman there in the early days around 2001, and did TV for 10. And all the while, I'm just kind of looking over my shoulder going, rodeo, where are you? You need to be up here. And I was working with NBC and Fox Sports, and I would literally sometimes go to studios in New York on several occasions to do voiceovers and do shows and do highlights, and LA too. Some of the best studios in the nation. I remember we were down the hall from where they filmed Saturday Night Live one time. Wow. In New York. And I got to go in and see the studio, and that was the level the PBR was playing in their earliest days after Randy Bernard said, hey, let's buy our own television rights. And the funny side of this story is he asked me to be the host and Tuff to be the main color guy. Ty Murray would come in those early days too. But it was such a harsh turnover because everybody loved Donnie Gay and Dan Miller. And people were just like, look at me and Tuff on an elevator one time, and it's like, you guys suck.
Took his job.
You guys suck. We don't like you. We don't want you. It literally happened.
Oh my gosh. So how did you said you started the PBR, so you were just announcing rodeos and then got the opportunity to announce a few? And
yeah, crazy story. So I was working for my dad. He ran the livestock auction at South Coffeyville. He owned it at South Coffeyville. I
didn't know that.
And he sold it to Jim Folk when I was 18. So he bought it when I was in kindergarten, sold it to Jim Folk.
Then Jim Folk sold it to Tylen Layton?
He did.
Just keeping it right there in the mix.
I know, keep it in the rodeo family. And so my dad also owned Parsons Livestock Auction. So I was sorting cattle out back, covered in sweat and manure, got a phone call, no cell phones then, had to go up to the office because I got paged. I answered it, and I said, hello, and the voice on the other side said, hey, Justin, this is Tuff Edeman.
Oh, hey, Tuff, how's it going?
Yeah. No, I literally said, all right, who is this really?
Right.
I literally said, no, really, who is this? And he's like, no, this is Tuff Edeman. Heard you announce. Cass Sally hired me to announce the Tulsa Rodeo. Tuff was riding. Heard me announce, called me. He said, can you be at Charlotte next week? Second year of the PBR, 1995. And I said, I just happen to be available.
So like at that point, if he would have offered you $40 and a plane ticket. You're out of there. Like, you're doing it.
Yes, yeah, because that's all I was making at the sale barn at the time. It wasn't near as fun.
It's so funny. You have to take some chances, though, in those early years of about throw your hat in the ring and see what happens.
Yeah.
So Charlotte goes great, or does it kind of huge learning curve?
Charlotte went great. Charlotte went great. Got to work with Randy Corley, and that was amazing. Learned a lot from him, and then at the same time, I'd got to know A.G. Myers at the Lazy E, and had announced the Prairie Circuit Finals the year before, and he was I don't think I was hired yet. I think after Tuff called, then A.G. Myers from Lazy E called and said, hey, I want you to come announce these 4 Bull Nanza events. They had one in Reno, 2 at the Lazy E, 1 in Nashville. And so, bam, I had Charlotte, and I had 4 Bull Nanzas, and they picked me to go to the finals that year.
Oh, wow. So then we keep up with the PBR, and then you moved to in-house TV.
Yeah, I was PA announcing in-house for 7 years, and then I moved to TV in 2000 and was there for
Now, who
10.
would they have had back then? Like, because that's before Flint goes.
Mm-hmm. Flint was off and on. Flint was still doing a lot of rodeos in the 90s. And so barrelman wise?
Yeah, like who would be, would it be like a rotation?
Yeah,
or was
they were
there
just they were just moving guys in as their availability was open.
Is that hard? Like the on and off play with an announcer and a runner, like the barrelman?
It's always been easy for me and I felt like I've been able to adapt because all I got to do is just be me. And I have a high respect for every one of the barrelmen. Well, most every. We could really jump in the weeds there. Most all the barrelmen that I've ever worked with, and I enjoy being around them. And they're talented guys. And it doesn't really matter what kind of comedy. I felt like I was able to adapt. I know Ted Kimsey and me in the early days.
That's Sage's dad.
That's Sage's dad. He was a barrelman. He was kind of toward the tail end of his career, and I was starting. But at some smaller rodeos, Coffeyville included, we would just switch roles. And we worked several rodeos together. He would be heckling me about my announcing, and I would be heckling him about a bad joke or not being funny or something. And he would say, well, if you think it's so easy, And so I would get in the barrel, and he would get on my horse that I was announcing on, and he would try to read the names, or he'd be sitting on my horse backwards, or he'd be fumbling through, saying names wrong or backwards or upside down. And then, I would tell a stupid dad joke out there. And we actually got to where we had a routine. And
did you ever have a bull hit the barrel with you in it?
I never had a bull hit the barrel when I was in it, but I had a real close call here in Ellensburg. Cody Soulsby, actually, Flint had retired. They were looking for a barrel man. The committee said, who would you like? And I had worked with Cody Soulsby in Abbeville, Kansas, a small rodeo, and he just killed it. I mean, let's just
pause right there and say it's an amazing rodeo. Our producer, Tiffany Wagner. So I went on and on this year about Abbeville, Kansas, because, they added so much money out of the blue. Like, bam, right?
You know where the money came from.
So then when I get the story on where all the money comes from for my followers out there in Toterland, they win Small Rodeo of the Year.
Yep.
And instead of using that money and getting what is it like they get the use of a board for a year or an upgrade, and they get the rodeo on the Cowboy Channel? Is that right?
they got to be on the Cowboy Channel. I actually shot Pro Rodeo Tonight from Abbeville, but they got a lot of incentive money.
And instead of doing
improvements on the grounds,
they just added it back.
They just put it right in the purse, and it was a cool deal. So then you guys show up.
Absolutely, everyone. And so I made sure that we were entered, and I kept telling Jake Long about how great Abbeville, Kansas is. And so he starts giving me crap nonstop about, you get Abbeville, Kansas. I mean, I'm like, you're from Kansas. You should be proud of that.
You should be entered.
He's
Jake
like, well, you're always telling stories about Abbeville. Absolutely, because any rodeo the committee that'll do that, we need to hold them in the highest respect.
Any town of 80 people that can put on the Small Outdoor Rodeo of the Year, you got to see it.
With the best pie that you have ever seen. That pie, if you buy it early, like we were up on a Friday night maybe or whatever, and my sister went over there and made sure we all had some before we left.
Good.
And she could have sold it for $200 a slice when she left because they run out.
They ran out. I know.
You know? So
I don't buy slices of pie. I buy whole pies.
So Tiffany has been heckling me all summer. You think, is this rodeo as good as Abbeville, Kansas? So I'm so happy that we get it brought up on the Toter Tales, Abbeville, Kansas. Now they're going to be medium rodeo of the year. That's what we need.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have went up a notch. Anyway, so you and Soulsby.
Yeah, I had worked with Soulsby at Abbeville, and I was just blown away by how talented he was. I said, hey, come to I talked to the committee at Ellensburg. Flint had retired. I said, hire this guy, Cody Soulsby, and they did. Well, I'm up announcing a rodeo, and during the bull ride, Cody Soulsby, he's at the barrel, he's standing beside the barrel, and as the guy's getting close to nodding, in the chute for his bull, Soulsby would work his way over back to the fence. And I thought, that's strange. He's not in the barrel. Okay, well, whatever. Watch him again. Same thing. Every time a guy's about ready to knot, he leaves the barrel, he eases over to the fence. And this happened 3 or 4 times. Finally, I just call him out on it over the microphone. I say, Soulsby, you're a barrel man. Why don't you stay in the barrel during the bull riding? I think it is one of the job requirements. But every time a guy gets ready to nod, you ease over to the fence. Matter of fact, I haven't even seen you in the barrel. He just says, if you think it's so easy, back to the old Ted Kim's guy, if you think it's so easy, it's like he had read our script or saw our gig. And I said, So I grabbed a wireless microphone from the sound man. I went down there to the barrel, and I said, I've got this. So I'm standing at the barrel, and I looked down inside the barrel, and I realized why he wasn't getting in it. He had flown out. He didn't drive because he's from Arkansas. He flew, borrowed a barrel. The barrel that he borrowed, he didn't know this, was not finished. It was not padded on the inside. He was not getting in there because he would have died if the bull would have hit it with no padding, right? So here I am thinking I'm going to...
Soulsby's got some padding.
Well, yeah.
The chicken mafia man himself, he would have been finished out.
That's true. So I'm standing there, and I'm just going to wait this. I'm going to finish the bull riding out. There was just a few more.
And you get in there.
I don't know. No. I knew better than to get in there. But I stay long enough that Shorty Gorham, the bullfighter's like, And remember the big red caddish bred bulls with no horn, but they were kind of red bramery looking from the Pacific Northwest back in the day. Remember Rapid Fire, Dog Face? A lot of listeners will.
I feel like, you're going to be on top of these breedings and these styles.
But they were mean. All of them were mean. Well, one of them caddish bred red bramers was out, and Shorty Gorham thought, he brings him over to the barrel and leaves him with me. And so I'm standing over the barrel, and the bull's looking at me. And I mean, we're nose to nose, and I'm trying to act really cool. And I'm like, I'll wait him out. He will go away. Bullfighters will come pick him up, or he'll see something. If I just stand here, well, he don't go anywhere. I look over there at Shorty, and he's just laughing. I'm like, all right, you sons of, hold
on, I got a button.
Got a beat button?
Yeah.
I'll show you. Because one thing I've learned about getting older, the older you get, the faster you were when you were young. So, I'm in my early 30s. I still think not only I'm fast, but I'm a lot faster than I really am. Now, the one thing one of the assets I have is I do have wheels.
I got speed.
I've got speed. And I throw a fake over on this left side of the barrel. I get him looking right here. I'm going on the right side, and I will be at the fence in like half a second. Well, I give him this fake over here on the left side, and he's out on the right side, and this bull is on my ass, and he is he's clipping. I'm running, and he's clipping the back of my heels. I mean, the heat is on, and I ain't gonna make it to the fence. So, I'm no bullfighter, but I've been around livestock my whole life, and used to try to ride bulls and everything. And I'm like, I got to get on the inside of his shoulder. So I got on the inside of his shoulder and spun him around. And it just happened to work out like I had been doing that a lot.
You just step around in Cody Webster style.
I did. And them guys picked him off, and the crowd went wild.
Well, I gotta say that's the coolest you coming out of the crow's nest at Ellensburg story I've had.
Maybe not.
Maybe my favorite.
Maybe not.
Is when Isley calls you down.
That's right.
To make you heel one.
I headed that day.
You got on David Keys.
David Keys. Oh my gosh, you don't miss anything.
I told my wife I am smart and I have answers. It's just she never has the right questions.
I'm going to use that. I'm stealing that. Yeah, you never had the right questions. Yeah. So yes, I did. Keith Isley, another barrel man, liked the rope. He had his horse. He had this staged. He said, "Hey, let's do this. There's an extra steer." And he had a yellow horse, and he was heeling, and I just happened to jump on David's horse and jumped out, and we were 4-9, and smooth run. Fred Whitfield, time we got back, after we got done blowing kisses, and people were throwing roses in the arena. Celebrating. Fred Whitfield's back in front of the chutes, literally bowing down, on his hands and knees, bowing down to us. I wish I had a picture of that.
That's no joke. That's 8 gold buckles.
I've got a really good picture of me spinning the steer right in front of the chute, and Isley setting up for the throw. But so Ellensburg is very special.
It's our spot.
It's the spot of the year.
And like you said, you touched on it, and we're getting to the playoff season. Used to Ellensburg was the cutoff, and it's new this year.
Right.
The cutoff happened earlier. Now everybody's fighting for that big Governor's Cup, South Dakota. That's going to play a huge role here at the end, isn't it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
No idea. So, yeah, you're going to have to tell me, which is a problem that I don't know what this system. You know what I'm saying?
I got you, baby.
That is a
Well, it's new this year, and it's kind of almost back to the old school, like when we first started. Man, my diamond bar cap is getting squished by these beautiful. That's these red dirt. Aren't they nice? Red Dirt Head Company. Check them out. They're going to drop some new toter gear.
I like it.
NFR. Maybe even do the podcast out there. I don't know. That's a lot, but we're working on it. But no, now the playoff system starts at Puyallup, and the teams that make the Final Four, they move on automatically. But the points keep accumulating, like Ellensburg, Walla Walla, Filer, Idaho, was there Abilene, Texas, and Pendleton, Oregon. So you have 5 more chances to get in the top 8. And then with the top 4 moving on, then if any of the top 8 teams have made the top 4, it'll drop down in the standings. So if you're 12th, there's a chance you could go.
Yeah.
But honestly, like about 10th might have a chance. And it could really upset the apple cart, especially the way it's fun this time of year, especially if your name's not down there, to start looking at where the breaks are going to start happening. But what you got are guys like Travis Graves, who's back a little ways, but he's also high in the tour
number
standings.
6 in the tour standings.
Exactly. So you're going to have some drama playing out here.
Which I love. Don't get me wrong. I love that. It's just that if you're going to have a system with that much magnitude, then let's spend some time breaking it down and educating fans. And I know, and I accept some of the responsibility for that, and maybe I should have dug in. And I want to point a finger at the PRCA and say, hey, why haven't we gotten together on this project? At the very beginning, why didn't you call me? And I am hosting Pro Rodeo tonight. Maybe before the rollout, and say, hey, we're rolling out this new tour. Here's how it's all laid out. Would you want to plug this in? Or they could have just said, hey, Justin, this needs to go in Pro Rodeo tonight. And I'm like, absolutely. So I'm still waiting. And and the other thing is, I take things that are complicated for new rodeo fans and try to make it real easy to understand. My job is to simplify. And when you get into a point system like that, where it's even confusing for me to understand, or for you, you may have to read it 3 times, is that really conducive to creating new fans? And I'm not running down that idea, the system, or the PRCA, because my objective is way different than them and you. My objective is, what can I do to make it easier and create more fans? Which is totally different than the objective of the PRCA and totally different from yours. So I have a whole different perspective. So a part of me that didn't pursue it on my own is, this is really complicated. And I need to stick to what I'm good at and what I am focused on, and that is creating new fans. This is more of a contestant deal. Even though it plays into the bubble story, which is our biggest story of the year, I know, and maybe this will, with your help, you can help push me in this direction, but that's where I'm at today.
Well, and I tell you what is complicated about it is a lot of guys didn't know that last week was the cut for Puyallup. So
you're talking about contestants didn't know? Okay, well, that's a problem.
We had some friends that didn't realize that cut. Maybe they didn't come out here. They're coming out next week. Thinking they still have a chance to.
And like I said, maybe this is all on me. I mean, it's just as much my responsibility, I suppose, to do that. But here's the other thing. I've seen us evolve in television. It's not like, hey, we're going to start a network in the PRCA in the first year. We're going to just jump in. We're going to be perfect the first year. Maybe the PRCA and me saw, oh, maybe we should have both come together. And I got a great relationship with, the media department, and I don't have a bone to pick with anybody at the PRCA. It's just this is unfolding pretty quick, and we're in the middle of it, and we haven't really covered it. And like, somebody's should step up, and probably both of us, actually.
That's an intriguing and it's a neat idea, because I have a lot of people ask me all the time, like, what we think about Cheyenne contestants.
Oh,
and what is your take on the tournament style rodeos?
Totally different.
Do you like that kind of setup, or do you for TV and why it works?
Are you asking me as an announcer or a contestant?
Well, as a guy that runs, I know. PR, like honestly, contestants, if it pays enough money, we'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Well, I want a 3-head average if I'm a contestant.
Right.
And that's the last thing I want is if I'm trying to create new fans.
absolutely. Well, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Like Cheyenne, the way
Oh,
you get, there's a lot
it's
of
wonderful.
storylines.
Every day is its own story. And you're not dependent on what happened 3 days ago when most of these people didn't watch what happened 3 days ago. So it's all about today. Top 4, move on. That's all you need to know. So from my viewpoint, it's perfect because this is the easiest way to create new fans. The old fans hate it. We're going to agree to disagree. And we're, Will McBride, I love the guy. Not going to agree on any of this stuff, especially on social media, which I don't really participate. But
I understand that. That's one thing I did talk to, and this would be a great moment for our signature Living Quarters signature moment. What would you give? And here's when I fire these off, Justin. Here's what I want to know is, what would you tell 16-year-old kid to 20-year-old kid? Maybe he's wanting to rodeo. Maybe he's wanting to announce. Maybe he's wanting to get into TV broadcasting. Give that kid a piece of advice.
be yourself. Be the best version of you can be. You be you. And if you have what it takes and you are accepted by the audience, then you'll make it. And some will, some won't. But the ones that are pretending to be somebody else won't.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Well, the reason I bring that up is I was able to go talk to the kids at Cavender's, a bunch of nice, young, professional Cavender sponsors. And what's great about them was you see the future of rodeo and of America. And one thing I always tell kids, especially because could you imagine trying to battle the social media deal when you were 16, 17, 18, 22, 25 years old? I mean, it would be tough.
Yeah.
And I say, there's a lot of times that you have an opinion that's valid, and there's a lot of times you have things that you want to say that would be a great point possibly, but you just don't put them out there. And sometimes that's not fair, but that social media lives forever, and those things can come back to haunt you.
Ooh, boy. Okay, here's the best advice that I can give everybody. Don't respond until 24 hours has passed. If there's something controversial,
Absolutely.
or something that gets your blood pumping or your emotions up, just wait 24 hours and then reread what you were going to post. Don't post it immediately. Don't ever respond right away on something that's controversial. No, do not go off your first instinct.
I always make my wife. The other day we were Cheyenne, and there was somebody being critical of the barrier, and they take a picture of it, and like in the picture you can tell the line's crooked. Like they weren't even, so it makes it look like the steer wasn't there, this and that.
Oh, right.
One of those deals.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, being a timed event contestant that was there for steer open slack of 100 and some and team open slack for 200, like I sympathize with those judges.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me enough to pull the barrier over there,
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take up for them a little bit because they did a great job. And there was a few times that it didn't quite pull and it broke, but they didn't give them plus 10. Mm-hmm. And I think too many times, is this a crossfire or not? And somebody puts a video on Facebook and then it just lights a fire. And it's like, man, at the end of the day, these are humans. Like, these are people. Nobody is trying. So I wrote a response to it, and I made my wife read it twice to make sure. Because I tell you what I do like. I do love discussion.
No, the conversation.
I love,
yes.
I tell you what I love. And even if we have two completely different opinions, right? I always say, like, when I go into politics, I'm going to feel the people around me will not have the same view as me.
Maybe, did you say when you go into politics?
One day, maybe. They might need
Wait a minute. You said when, and then you said maybe, so which is it?
Well, I'm a politician. But my point is, like, let's it's great. Let's discuss.
Yeah.
You have your opinion. It is completely different than mine. I can respect you still as a human. I can respect your opinion, and you can respect mine. And you know what? What's great is when you get, it's like when I aggravate Tiff and we start debating stuff, from a little bit of friction and fire, you can get a great solution.
Yeah.
If you pay attention. But I think in the social media age, it's gone off the rails the other way. But it was so awesome. I've got message by 3 or 4 people from the Cheyenne Frontier Days that thanked me for doing that.
Yeah.
I think it was great, though. That's a great point. Don't respond within 24 hours.
Just wait. Just wait until, because you got to take your emotions out of the process and use some common sense and some rational thinking. And
grab you a cup of good community coffee.
I haven't been offered a cup of community coffee.
Well, everybody that's on the Toter Tales, I'm going to put that on my producer. Everybody that comes to Toter Tales is welcome to a cup of community coffee. If you like it hot or if you like it cold, we've got all the options because we never know what you're going to need. We just know we'll have it when you do. I'm telling you, I need to be a guy that names things. Would you get this man a cold brew, please? Cold brew of the.
Okay, now. Oh, I love
this is
these little gems.
Espresso and cream.
I love.
Show the world. Aren't those amazing?
They really are. So will they get you down the road or what?
They will get Tiffany a ways behind that steering wheel. You know, because it's
wait a
tough.
minute. How many miles per? What is this?
You could drive back to Tremont, Utah
half pint
tonight if you needed.
Okay, so how many miles per half point will you get out of one of these guys? Couple hundred miles per pint. Half
That's right.
pint.
I mean, cheap prices. It's cheaper than diesel.
I love it.
So it has been fun this year because I am trying to steer rope more.
Yes.
And of course, you're an avid steer roper. Do you still do it?
Used to be.
I know you don't.
No, I blew 3 ACLs, 2 at Pendleton, each knee, and then worked out really good because my last ACL I was in my mid 40s. And my daughter was starting high school rodeo, and I kind of need to focus on that anyway. So I'm like, this is a good stepping off place right here. So, yeah.
Man, I don't know how you quit. I don't. I told Trevor Brazil that the other day.
Well, I mean,
don't.
you know, people quit cocaine. They quit steer roping.
I said there's got to be some sort of a 12-step program. Like I can't. The other night we got in a rental car because the toter was being a little bit facetious. And we get in a rental car, we drive to Gooding, Idaho, and we rope, and we get in that car, and Tiff and I drive it all the way back to Deadwood, South Dakota, pull in 30 minutes before slack starts, get on, run. And I run 2, and I tie them down decent, not great. And I had 2 pretty, not to sound too steer roper-ish about it, but I did draw on the rougher end. I usually draw really good. I'm very lucky. And we're already kind of out of it. My third one, I roped him around the neck. He was pretty good. I'd already placed on him once, and it's like, oh, why am I doing this to myself? I got to get in a truck and drive another 14 hours to Tremont, or back to Kennewick. And I'm like, this is dumb. I shouldn't be doing this. And then I make a great run on my 4th one.
You can drive around the world.
11.5. Don't even win money, but it's like hitting that good drive off 18, baby. You're like, where do we go next? When's the next one? I made up with it. It's terrible. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. But you, arena record holder, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Yeah, how great was it? And you won the average there that year, right? You win the daddy. So what happens? I want to know the exact story because I've made up all kinds of great stories.
It's a sad story.
It's a
no. This story is just sad all the way through. So I'm announcing the rodeo. First of all, I didn't think I could ever get to enough rodeos to make the finals. I really wanted to make the finals, but I could only get to like 8 or 10 rodeos a year because of my announcing schedule. And so I thought my next best goal is I'm announcing Cheyenne, I'm announcing Pendleton. I want to step out of the announcer's box in the short go.
Hold this.
Yeah, hold my microphone. I got some stuff to take care of right here. And I 3 or 4 times at Pendleton, 3 times, I think 3 times out of the booth. I made a short round 4 or 5 times at Pendleton.
Wow.
And
that's a feat.
Won 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at Pendleton. So I've got a lot of frustration about Pendleton, actually.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, but think about it, because 3 times I've sat there on the track with the lead thinking, I am going to win this. First time, I thought, I am going to win Pendleton. Second, it didn't. Second time, okay, it's just meant to be this time. It is. Yeah. And the 3rd time's when I won second. This is going to be my year, and still didn't win it. So I'm still very bitter about that. But anyway, I made a short go. I think another 3 or 4 times at Cheyenne while I was announcing. I think I made Cheyenne short round 6 times, but no, I'm not counting. But the year that I tied the fast steer, so I've never told this story really publicly.
Oh, is this a? Wait a minute. Hold on, just a second. Let's get a.
It's a really sad story. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
This is going to be a Toter Tales exclusive.
Yeah, it really is.
Let's hear the infamous.
So
is it 10-8?
10-1.
10-1.
By far. I mean, just I think the old record was Marty Jones. I think he was 11-8 or 9.
Hey, that guy was ranked back in the day.
Oh my gosh. That's another sad part of the story because I feel bad. All right, so I'm toward the end of the first round. And everybody is gone, and I draw a really good steer, and I time really fast. And I'm looking up at the clock because I think I have just won the round at Cheyenne, and it says 10-1. And I'm like, I get on my horse, and I'll look up, and it still says 10-1. I'm like, where is my time? Because I'm thinking this is a 12. I may have broken 13, got in the 12-second range on this run, and still 10-1, and everybody's kind of looking at each other, and I'm like, I'm pointing at the scoreboard, and the guy that was the committee chairman, I rode right up to him. Obviously, I knew him. I'm announcing a rodeo, right? And I said, Jim, what's my time? And he runs up there, talks to the timers, and those were some older timers before, that was in '04, and a lot of regulations have changed. These guys have been there a lot of years, and I don't know, the average age on them may have been, bumping around 85 to 90 years old. Anyway, he come back down. And he said, "That's it." They checked and rechecked, and I'm like, "What do I?" Roy Cooper rides by and said, "Hey, sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you, baby. Take it while you can." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no! I just want to win the round. I don't."
Right.
And,
which they say you were probably going to win the round either way. You were,
thank God. Fortunate. No steer roper there entered that day would question that was the fastest run. I think everybody knew that. And then I went back and even timed it on the video. And
10-3.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
So then, does that let you make? So do you?
So
that's round
couple of things happen. Maybe a year later, I find, or months later, I don't remember. But T. Woolman missed right before me at 10-1, and so everybody brings up the record, and I always say, "Yeah, it's the record with an asterisk." What's the asterisk for? Well, it's for a long story. So since this is a long format conversation,
this is the Toter Tales.
Yeah, exclusive right there. But I placed in the second round, and I'm leading the average by a mile. And all I got to do is tie him down. I'm the last guy to go, split his horns. And but I did go on to place everywhere else. I went on. That's when I won second at Pendleton. And there was no way I would ever miss the Pendleton short round steer. I mean, I'm running to him going, "You have no chance today. I own those horns today." And I mean, it went really well. And then there were still some rodeos and left. I didn't even enter Dodge City, I don't think. But I got to go to Texas and placed at a couple of them anyway, in at 18th. So
18th, and just barely missed them.
Mm-hmm.
My first year at Cheyenne was very blessed.
Oh my gosh, I was so proud of you.
My second one, it was so awesome how Jess Tierney's like, "This is the best steer that's ever been Cheyenne." Like, "Oh my gosh, if you don't fall off, this is the greatest steer that's ever been Cheyenne." And I'm like, "All right, Jess, that's enough. Like, we'll do our best here, And I made a good run. I was 11 something. I was 11, 8, 11.
Which would have been the old record.
But I have no idea.
But you are on a 10-foot shorter score than I was,
so
or than Marty Jones was, because I feel so bad for Marty, because he would still have the record.
J. Tom Fisher was the one that told me this. Whatever I was, and it was the same way though, because when I stood up and ran back to my horse, it says 10-5.
Really?
And then it flashed and went to 11-8. Because like on the video that Jess's wife sends me, and Jess's wife, she's over there going, "Hustle, hustle, hustle," and I had to explain to her like, "Hey, my hustle looks different than Jess's hustle. Like, there's the same amount of effort, I promise." So anyway, I turn around, I get my rope, and so I come over. Everybody's like, "Great job, great run."
Right.
But J. Tom Fisher was like, "That's probably the 5th fastest run here."
Yeah.
And I mean, he had them all. Bam, bam. He goes, "Well, there's Justin's," which he said you were probably 11 something.
That's very generous, J. Tom. Thank you so much.
He definitely did say that those were on the longer score. Like he had all the stats.
Yeah, he's smart.
They are smart.
Oh, them Fishers are smart.
Great people too. They have a Hereford cattle ranch, right?
Yeah.
And their genetics go back like 100 or 150 years since the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I'm like, man, they do so good out here. What's the secret? And they're like, well, they do a lot better in the shade of all those oil derricks.
That helps.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, it helps.
So we go from the PBR, then we got into ministry. Let's talk a little bit about your ministry.
Oh, wow. It's interesting how we fell into that. I don't know. You know this story.
I don't know if I do.
I got fired. I got fired from the PBR. I mean, I was the voice of the PBR.
Absolutely.
I mean, not that I gave myself that title, but I mean, right in the middle of the heydays when they were really growing good. And
is that how it can go in broadcasting? Like it can just one swoop, one person changes position?
Yeah. Yeah, so they hired a new producer, and he was from L.A., and the guy that I was working with was a very good friend of mine. We'd worked together for years, Joe Lavero. You know Joe. That's how I got to know him, was through the PBR. And anyway, they canned him, and I think, I don't know, I think the producer knew that he and I were close. And I also think that he had a different vision. See, I was successful in television with the PBR because I rode bulls as a kid, junior bulls, and not that it means anything, but I know what it means for a bull to spin into my hand. I know what it means or what it feels like for a bull to spin away from my hand. I know what it's like being jerked down. I know what it's like trying to crawl over the front end with your, over the front end between the horns of that bull, or attempting to anyway, and so I had just enough of a taste of bull riding where I could be a decent TV guy.
Like you could paint the picture without being an expert.
I could paint the picture, and I could tell stories. And I was careful not to cross the line. I mean, I would never imply that I was even a bull rider compared to real bull riders.
Right.
And so, but I was able to take it a step further than most announcers, I guess you could say. But at the same time, this guy, and I don't blame him. He wanted a mainstream. So I would do play-by-play and stay away from the color. Let the pros talk about the color. And then even while I was still there, they hired some mainstream guys that were not cowboy at all. So I was kind of stuck in the middle. But I found a good place and lasted several years, bringing the storylines up and focusing on the stories of the bulls. I mean, I'm the guy that created the stories early on of Little Yellow Jacket and Blueberry Wine and Dillinger, and I got to know, I went to the ranches and got to know their owners and their stories, and that's what I found a niche there. But that guy wanted either a professional rider talking or a guy with no hat. I was the guy wearing a hat in the middle. Just didn't fit his plan, his model. So, yeah.
And it did change a lot, like from the years of when you were, like it got almost more of a rock starry type, like a.
I never
like
watched one
show.
afterwards.
Like it was.
I kept telling Leah Garcia, I'm just one more year away from going back to the ranch and running cows full time. For like 3 years before I left. So it wasn't just horrible, because that was kind of my goal, to be out 20 years and pay for the place and go home and ranch the rest of my life. But that's another story. But anyway, the last PBR finals I announced on TV, they changed producers. I'm trying to just make eye contact with this guy in the hallway. Eventually get a meeting to find out what my new contract was like. I couldn't get nothing. I mean, he wouldn't even look at me, speak to me or anything. Finally, the last day of the finals, he says, hey, well, let me back up. So he's blowing me off every day, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, what if? And I kept hearing this voice like, hey, I think you're called to something even better. And I got something for you. And I literally kind of thought about the little town of Lenapaw, where I lived for 25 years, me and my wife lived, needs a cowboy church, because we were driving to Cowboy Junction at Veneta, which is about 45 minutes from us. And we did that for years, to go to church over there with Wade Markham and the family that you know well. And I just thought, well, it'd be great to start one there. And I kept thinking about that. Every day this guy would blow me off. You're supposed to start a cowboy church in Lenapaw, is the voice I finally heard. And then I got fired, and I called my wife, and I said, Jeannie, I just lost my job. And she's like, what? And we had just doubled the size of the house and bought the 100 acres across the road, did all of this stuff, and I don't have a job anymore. She said, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I think we're supposed to start a cowboy church in Lenapaw. And she's like, who's going to pastor? And I said, I think it might be me. But I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to be a preacher. I sure don't want to be a pastor. And I don't think I want to be a preacher either.
Is there a difference?
Yeah. A preacher preaches and teaches on a subject. A pastor is the guy who shows up at the funerals and the hospitals and at the homes when there's been an alcoholic dad beat up his family, and I'm the guy and the pastor is the guy that shows up at the drug rehab facilities on a pretty frequent basis in Northeast Oklahoma. And yeah, I didn't want to do none of that. And anyway, strangely enough, my wife went to church. She went to church in Nowata, Oklahoma, and the pastor said, hey, Jeannie, I need to talk to Justin. And where's he at? She said, well, he's just finished up the PBR finals. He'll be home in a day. And he's, okay. She said, what do you need? He said, man, I just been praying about some stuff. And he said, I think that he's supposed to start a cowboy church in Lenapaw. And she's like, what did you say? And so the next day I'm home, and my county commissioner, which was Dean Bridges. Do you ever know Dean Bridges?
No, sir.
Dean is a military guy and a great friend of mine, the county commissioner. He was also a pastor. He's kind of a big brother mentor type guy. Always looking up to him and stuff. And he shows up on my doorstep. I said, Dean, come in. What are you doing? Sit down. He sat down in my office, and he said, man, he said, I've been hearing this voice inside of me that I'm supposed to tell you to start a Cowboy Church in Lenapaw. I mean, like the next day, another guy says the same thing. And I sat down in my office chair, and I got a 5-gallon bucket, just a regular feed bucket for trash bucket. And on the top of that feed bucket was a newsletter from the Lenapaw Historical Society, which Lenapaw is less than 200 people. It's by Coffeyville, Kansas, about an hour north of Tulsa. And more my wife's from, and I didn't grow up too far from there. But anyway, there's a newsletter from the Lenapaw Historical Society inviting everybody to the Old Rock Gym where the school used to be. Beautiful old limestone gym for a grand opening of the remodel. It's complete, and we're having a country music show. The whole community's invited. And I looked at that, and I looked at Dean. I said, well, that would be a great place for a Cowboy Church. And he said, yeah. He said, I went in it the other day just to look around. They got it all Western and everything. So Jeannie and I, we went to that jamboree or country music show or community get-together, whatever it was, in the Old Rock Gym. Waited till everybody was done. We talked to the old couple that had organized all this fundraising and redid this beautiful old limestone gym. And I said, hey, you got a minute? And they said, yeah, what's up? I said, sit down. We got to visit. And I told them this story. And he was the mayor of our little town, and they're just an awesome older couple. He turned to his wife and didn't even ask his wife, didn't even say anything to his wife. He said, me and my family have been working on this project for about 8 years, and we've got some government grant. I mean, we have poured our life into this building. And he said, now we know why. And he slid that key across that table, and he said, this is where you're supposed to have your Cowboy Church. So I'm like, crap, I can't get out of this now. I mean, literally God backed me in the corner and said, this is what you're going to do. And that's what I did. So I went home on a ranch, got a few more announcing jobs, the professional Rust Stock series. I did a little of that on TV.
That was a neat deal where they do.
It was a good concept.
Like
yeah,
a bareback, saddle bronc,
and bulls.
And they give away a ranch or something. What, an acreage or?
They may have one year, but yeah, it was a good idea. They went to medium markets, small to medium markets, and yeah. Anyway, they went away, but it was good while it lasted, and so that is what I did. I mean, we had church on Monday nights, and we had you over for our rodeo Bible camps. That's where we really got to know each other. And,
absolutely.
And we did the whole Cowboy Church thing, and I've never been more out of my comfort zone.
So had you gone to seminary?
Oh, shoot. No, I hadn't opened my Bible in probably months when that happened. I don't know.
So you were just...
No, I was trying to dig. I'm always asking, why do I believe the way I do? And I kept asking myself, do I believe the way I believe just because my dad believed that way, or is that what I really believe? So I was actually kind of digging around on some stuff before that. I had read a book, The Case for Christ. Lee Strobel, I believe, is the author. And he was an atheist, and he was also one of the editors at the Chicago Tribune. And he was trying to prove God was wrong, and he went and dug all this stuff up about Jesus, and he went through the historical perspective of what happened during Jesus' time. Anyway, he found out, oh my gosh, this is true. And so then he became a Christian and wrote this book. And it really was analytical on how and why it all happened, which is what I needed for my brain to go, oh yeah, okay, I really believe that. But there were some things as I progressed, and you know, the Bible, so I started trying to dig in and do my part. And I found myself, to simplify my ministry, it was just like, my teaching was, this is how I messed up this week, and this is how I'm going to try to attempt to change. In the story. That's all I knew. But at least I was transparent, and I was willing to just kind of be me and throw it out there, which I don't think preachers do near enough of. If I did anything right, then I think I was authentic and honest. And it's like, hey, man, I yelled at my wife working cattle this week, which was a pretty
That's
typical
easy
sermon.
to
That's
do.
pretty typical sermon material right there for me. But yeah, that was it until the Cowboy Channel really came along.
That's incredible. You know, because when you asked me at Cheyenne to come do the Cowboy Church,
Yes.
and now when I'm like, yeah, absolutely, Justin. Because one thing I want to compliment you on is you're a giver. Like there's been a lot of people you've helped their careers along the way, and you know, the first chance I got to go to Vegas when I missed the finals and help you in the pregame show, that was a blast. Like, you've always thrown my name in the hat and, like, always tried to help me along. Even though, that was always the last thing I was ever thinking about doing, right? But you would always, so I've been like, yeah, okay, Justin, if you need me, I'm there.
You were made for TV. Are you kidding me?
When you asked me about doing a sermon
At Cheyenne the other day.
when I think of it, and I told Tiff this earlier this week on our podcast, like, I thought it was over there at like the Cowboy Bistro tent.
Oh, you thought it was just going to be a few contestants?
And I should have known better because we went to church there last year, right?
Oh.
So I had no idea that we were like doing the big dog.
Oh, you
church.
didn't know?
I thought maybe I was like a warm-up act for like what the real church was.
No, you
Yeah.
were.
So then I'm thinking,
You were it.
and then when you give me the notes and it says I'm supposed to be here, and like you guys had it broke down. I mean, at
No, because
90
it was Susie McIntyre, right?
I mean, 9:03.
She was
she's
in
doing
charge of
this.
it.
At 9:05, it's this. 9:06. At 9:09, Coleman Proctor, and it said his story of Christ, but I thought it said history of Christ.
You thought
So
you were in
we're-
trouble?
I was like, Justin, I might be out of my depth here, man. Because I took an astronomy class last year, and I told Tiff, I said, which I don't get into a lot of theological debates that aren't with Tiff, but I'm like, honestly, if you're a scientist trying to explain the Big Bang Theory to me, and then the sun has got nuclear fission going on inside of it, right? And if that quits, it all blows up.
Okay.
If astronomy doesn't, astronomy, if it does not make you think of,
There has to
if
be.
that doesn't prove in
There has to be a
creation,
creator, yeah.
right? Then
Right.
I don't know what does,
I know.
right? I don't. But so when the people start talking science about it, but anyway, so I come on there. Anyways, we had a blast. We had a great time. I'm actually gonna pin that one. Been wanting to put it on my Toter Tales, but I wanted to have you here first. Got a
That's
lot of
why I haven't
requests,
seen it on social media.
Right, I've been
Because you
trying to save
nailed it.
Toter Tales exclusive. I don't know if I nailed it, but I love what you said.
You did.
And I took your kind of perspective because I promise you, I've not been the ideal Christian my whole life. Not even the whole week, probably. Like if I'm being real about
Nobody
it, you know
has.
what I mean?
Nobody
But
has.
I think that's what we miss a lot, and people who are real about it, like, hey, here. And so I told Tiff, I said, I don't know how I'm going to stand in front of a crowd of people and tell them how to live their life right. Like, I mean, I feel like I've been doing it wrong most of my life.
So that was me every week for 7 years when I had that church. I'm like, I mean, my prayer was, Lord, help me fool them again. I mean, because because when I got into it, you know, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to really do it. And so, I mean, I'm reading and I'm calling people and I'm gathering information. I'm trying to do it right, and I'm still I was still falling short all the time. So yeah, it was just like I don't understand.
But I love that because what I told Tiff was, I said, all right. I told Steph, my wife, I said, here's what I do know. When you come to me and get help with your roping, it isn't because I've just dreamed this stuff up, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, I've asked advice. Somewhere along the way, I've been showed a way, path. Somebody's taught me.
Right.
And I'm doing my best to replicate this.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was.
That's good.
I've been the most nervous I've ever been in my life. With the sweetest people. So you
Man.
leave the church. So now our church
Well, I
lasts for
want to.
7 years.
I'm not finished talking about what you did at Cheyenne because that was just extraordinary, and I was so proud of you, and I loved it. And I thought in 8 minutes you told the story.
I told
I mean-
a lot. I was supposed to be 5 minutes.
Whatever.
I know
10,
that
5.
I really don't ever get a time restraint. You know what I mean? I'm not good at it. But I'm going to
Well,
pin that. to
here's
the
the
backside
deal.
of this.
Yeah. So explain what that means to a lot of people like me that don't even know what pinned means, because people need to hear what you had to say.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to stick it on the backside of here, the
Backside
Toter Tales. So it's
of
going to be
this.
clipped onto our
okay,
Toter
okay.
Tales podcast. So anybody that wants to watch it, they're going to come. They'll catch a Toter Tales that I do on Facebook. I'll encourage them if they want to hear, because I've
Yeah.
had some people request, like, where do I find it?
Nice.
And I wanted it to be
included.
on the
Okay.
Toter Tales, because we had talked about this earlier. I have been trying to up our game in here a little bit. Signatures made it look so beautiful.
It is
I
gorgeous.
had some great guests, and I just didn't love the audio quality, and we were just trying to get better as we
Before you
go
released
along. And then, that's been our main deal, and we just got the toter back at the beginning of the summer. So now we're up
Okay.
and rolling. Things feel great. And
Well, because there's a lot of people that I personally want to send your talk to from Cheyenne. So I thought that was cool. And I really struggle with Christianity in America today. And one of the books that I read through this process was Why Men Hate Going to Church. Ooh, let me tell you. That made me really look at what do men really think of church and are afraid to say. This guy said it, and it was everything that I thought about church and was afraid to say, and he said it. And so now I'm saying it. The system needs looked at. And I shared a post this week that says, tell me and I'll forget. Teach me and I might remember. Involve me and I'll learn. The whole premise of this book, Why Men Hate Going to Church, is it's basically church, for the most part in America, is a lecture. It's one man lecturing everybody else on how to live. Well, guess how many men like to be lectured to? None.
I've explained that to my wife too a lot.
None. None of us like a lecture. Why is one guy doing all the work and the rest of them, all the rest of us doing all the sitting and complaining, and we're getting lectured to? Same way with our school system. It's the most ineffective way to teach anything, is to be in a classroom setting, which most all men hate, and get lectured to. Let me read this to you again. Tell me, and I'll probably forget. So how much do we remember of most sermons today? Not much, because you told me what in a lecture setting, so I'm probably going to forget. Teach me, and I may remember. Spend some time one-on-one. Let's study the Bible. Let's read. You teach me, I might have a better ability to recall. But if you involve me, that's when I learn. And that's the Cowboy Church model has done a great job involving people outside the building. You see, the building is what people worship a lot of times. And in this book, Why Men Hate Going to Church, I love the story, the timeline that he created. When men came home from World War II is when they built most of the churches in the United States. And those guys built a lot of those churches with their own hands, especially in small communities. The farmers and the ranchers, they built those with their own hands. And guess what? They were involved. And so because they were involved and engaged through the physical part of the process, which is always overlooked in religion, the physical part, body, soul, and spirit, we kind of need to take care of all of them. And that doesn't mean you need to go to the gym. It needs your body needs to be physically involved in the ministry. Well, it was for those guys because they built these church buildings. And then they sat for the next couple of decades in their generation, and they enjoyed the majesty that they created. I created this. Every week they go, I created this. And that's what fed their soul. And in a lot of ways, not their spirit, that's what their emotional guy, their soulish man. And so then we came along and we continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. And that generation is gone now. So now we're just going in these buildings, worshiping the building, doing the same old thing, the same old revival message. Hey, you need to get saved, And man, I've learned through this process that there's a lot more than the same old thing. It's like horsemanship. If you're a true student of horsemanship, you're constantly evolving, learning, applying, and changing. And that's the way we should be in our Christianity. And too many times we're just punching the time clock, going to the church, doing the same thing. Hey, I put in my hour, I punch the time clock, now I go do my own thing. Next week I go punch in my time clock. I think a lot of people go to the most boring churches in the country because it's so painful. They feel like they really sacrificed
really
something.
got it in
Boy,
there.
I really laid it on the altar
Church
for God this week. Instead of learning and evolving. I had a guy talk to me yesterday. I went to get my complimentary truck at University Auto Center of Ellensburg, like I do, which I'm very grateful for. And the guy that I'd never met before, a sales guy, said, hey, I've got your truck here. Here's the keys. He said, but before you leave, I just got to say something. Your prayers. He said, I haven't heard people pray like you before. And I said, prayer is real simple. because religion has taught us to keep asking for answered prayer and begging for blessings, I don't pray that way anymore because my learning has evolved. Instead of begging God for more, I'm thanking Him for what I already have. Because I'm begging God to fix all my problems during my prayer, what is my soulish, what is my mind, my soulish man focused on? If I'm begging Him to fix all my problems, what am I focused on all the time?
Problems.
All my problems.
Absolutely.
If I'm thanking Him for what He did, what Jesus did on my behalf every day, because of the grace that I don't deserve, if I'm focused on that alone, let alone the good things He's given me, but if I'm just focused on one thing, He became sin for me so I could become the righteousness of God, and I don't deserve it, but He gave it to me anyway, and He loves me no matter how much that I mess up, that will allow you to grow and evolve and learn and go into a deeper relationship, and becomes easier to understand the Bible, because I was a preacher for all 7 years, and it wasn't until the last years where I'm going, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what this is. I've been teaching, I shouldn't say teaching it wrong, because it got me to a place where I learned what's right. And Paul was continuing to teach. This is Paul's ministry in the New Testament. Hey, you guys are stuck in religion here. You just keep on saying the same prayers, doing the same thing, and that's not where it's at. There's a whole new game in town, and it's grace and forgiveness and God's love. You don't have to perform anymore. There were 613 laws that they had to uphold. Nobody could do it. This one's pretty easy.
Wow. That was breathtakingly great. I mean, you got Tiff. She's up on her knees right now.
She's
just
not.
Pulled in. That's great.
The whole, my conversation with this car salesman, look, just change your prayer. Just change your prayer and everything. Quit asking for God what you want, because you're wanting God to change circumstances. Our circumstances are here because of the forces of nature, because of the decisions that we've made and our grandparents made and our neighbors made and our country has made. And so we're asking God, change these circumstances. God's up there going, I can't change these circumstances. We've had all of these bad decisions that man has been making all this time. You're just going to have to get through it. Well, then where is God in all of this? To get us through the chaos that the world in which we live in. It's just to help us through one problem to the next one. He helps us to the next one, and that's it.
My daughter said the other day that she wanted some different crayons, and Mama said, well, I don't think we got any in the cabinet. She said, that's okay. I'll just ask God. And I want to be like, we got to correct that.
Yeah.
But it's at least started
it's cute.
in the right
it's
direction.
Very sweet.
So.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for your time today.
You bet, buddy.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. I asked Tiff the other day, I said, who would be the one person and she goes, we got to get McKee on there.
Oh, wow.
I love that,
Thank
changing your focus of your prayers. It's kind of like changing the focus of that target, isn't it?
Okay.
How was your healing today?
Yeah. Rock star, man.
Doing it.
Yeah, I did it. I was sacking them up. Thank you for that. So Coleman, he came, I haven't roped in a year, came to the West Star, big pro-am on Wednesday. I want to win it so bad. And it's a big, this is my NFR. And I show up, and I cannot catch 2 feet. Coleman said, hey, whistled at me. He said, come here. And he said, what are you looking at? What are you looking? Can I give away this secret?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, maybe, man, you charge.
I mean, I get
this
1,000
stuff.
a day for one or two
do.
people, but that's fine.
Oh,
I like
man.
giving the nugget, though. You can give the nugget. That's fine.
Right.
And I tell you why, though, because I didn't come to you first, because honestly, I'm not an NFR healer. I teach a lot of healing.
Yeah.
But it was like, there's a lot of people up there, and I don't ever want to overstep my bounds. But it pains me to watch you struggle like you were. And I wanted to say something. I feel like we're good enough friends I could.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want to be like.
No. I'm so
And
glad
then I
you did.
just heard, like, you got some advice about your horse, advice about this, advice about that. And that's when I was like, hey, man, let's visit for just a second.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm not going to talk about it, but like the next.
No, I tell you, we talked about changing your focus.
Yeah.
And how much you can change with your eyes.
Exactly. And if you fix your eyes right, like the prayers, everything changes. Great illustration.
Thank you very much. Butch
Thanks for
Harmon
the
talked
help.
all the time about Tiger's swing. He said, you've got to fix core problems.
Mm-hmm.
Fix the core problems. Those little ones, they just fall away.
Yep. Position, tip, and focus.
All of it gets easy.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much for coming along with this. Good luck this weekend.
I thank the world
of
of you and your family and Tiff, and I'm just proud of you, and I'm a
Thank
fan. I can't wait that one day we're going to be working together in TV more.
That'll
so.
be fun. I'm looking forward to it. That is fun. That is something that you did bring into my life that I had no. People always make the joke about it, but I was like, I'm not ready to talk about it. I'm still wanting to do it,
I know.
And then, because nowadays it's so funny how many people I meet that are like, wow, my wife loves your Toter Tales, loves your videos, loves.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I rope also. You know what I mean? But it's great, and I appreciate the opportunities you've given me, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day.
It's
Because
only the
I
beginning.
believe this wholeheartedly that, you can borrow money and it can be replaced, but when a man gives you his time, that's something you can never
Yeah.
pay back.
That is my highest everybody's highest treasure is our time.
Well, we thank you so much, Justin
Honored.
McKee, ladies and gentlemen.
Honored.
Stay tuned. I'll have my Cheyenne testimony coming at you live right after the completion of this Toter Tales. And I'm Coleman Proctor for Justin McKee, and I just want to remind you each and every day, never hesitate to make somebody's day just a little bit better. Bye, everybody.